Can you skip to the group 2 and then the group 1 presents?
Why?
What is happening to group 1? Is the person not there?
Emmanuel has the presentation and he's not here. He was on the group, but now he's not here. Let's confirm.
Okay, is group 2 ready? We can go to group 2. And then we can take group 1 last if you're not ready now. Group 2. Please remember to unmute your mic before you speak, otherwise we don't hear you. Is group 2 there? I think Felix is the coordinator. Are you ready, group 2?
I am the coordinator, although we asked Asenia to make the presentation. She's not in. Okay, on her behalf, I can make the presentation. Or I don't know if Prof, would you like to, as the coordinator? I would prefer Prof present or someone else. Okay, all right. So let me share my screen so I can make the presentation. Okay. Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Okay.
Yes, we can see your screen.
All right. So our presentation is premised on the title, Effect of Counseling and Psychosocial Support on HIV positive key population and ART adherence in Africa, a systematic review and meta-analysis. These are the group 2 members, and we're making this presentation as part of our end project in the course, Systematic Review and Meta-Analysis online course, coordinated by Dr. Bright Onwaro. As a form of introduction, we're very much aware that key populations like the MSM, that's the men who have sex with men, FSW, the female sex workers, and injecting drug users, the IDU, they are more susceptible to ART non-adherence in the sense that they are more and heavily infected based on data that have shown. And as a result of that, coupled with their risk lifestyle, they also fall short based on literatures in adhering to their drugs. And some other studies have come up to show that one of the ways that we can encourage this group of people, especially the key populations, to adhere to their drug is to put in intervention procedures like counseling and psychosocial support. That way it will enhance their adherence to their drugs and also help in their viral load suppression, further enhancing their clinical treatment and outcome. So our research of objective and research question for this review, the research objective was to determine the effect of counseling and psychosocial support on ART adherence among HIV positive key populations in Africa. And our research question is, what is the effect of counseling and psychosocial support on ART adherence among HIV-positive key population in Africa. So for eligibility criteria, inclusion criteria for the study designs, we included intervention studies, cohort studies, and cross-sectional studies. Those specifically that are written in English, publish anytime. We selected 3 key populations: FSW, MSM, and IDU. And in totality, we evaluated the impact that these interventions, that's the counseling and psychosocial support, have on their antiretroviral therapy adherence, which is a form of treatment that is used for HIV-positive persons. So for the search strategy, it was conducted on the 8th of June 2020, and we used only one database, which is the PubMed. We headed to PEO, that's our population, our exposure, also called intervention, then our outcome. The population, which is the key population, the exposure or the intervention, we used 2, counseling and psychosocial support, and our outcome was ART medication adherence. Now, this is our search terms that we use, that we imputed into PubMed. Now, in continuation of the methodology, we wrote a study protocol. We used Ryan for screening our studies into inclusion and exclusion criteria. We had 2 independent reviewers to extract the data and also to fill our data extraction form. Prisma was used to identify the articles, and the CARBS checklist for screening cohort studies was used for the quality assessment, which was moderate. So for the Prisma, we used the preferred reporting items for systematic review and meta-analysis formulated by Moher et al. 2009. So the studies we retrieved in PubMed was 18. There were no duplicates. Reason could be because it was just one database. We screened the 18 articles we got and excluded 6 immediately based on the title or the abstract. Then we did further screening on the 12 full articles that we included, and we excluded 11. 8 was due to the fact that they were outside the review topic. 2 was a qualitative study, and 1 was a systematic review. At the end of the day, we had just 1 paper included for our systematic review. So our results finding it's up there. The study was a quantitative study. The title there, Retention and Risk Factors for Loss to Follow-up of Female and Male Sex Workers on Antiretroviral Treatment in Ivory Coast, conducted by Vul Skete et al. 2015. It was a retrospective cohort study done within the period May 11 and 28. We had 414 respondents, 376 female, 38 male. 367 were female sex workers and 38 men who have sex with men. The key objectives for the study I had mentioned initially, the key objective for this particular study is to assess retention of sex workers on ART in a routine setting in Ivory Coast and identify risk factors for loss to follow up. The key findings for this paper was that receiving ART counseling was significantly associated with ART medication adherence. So overall, only 1 article from our search examined the effect of counseling as a single intervention and its relationship with ART adherence. The article used a quantitative method to assess determinants of ART adherence amongst these key populations that were selected in the study. Psychosocial support as an intervention was not reported in this study. The article highlighted the importance of counseling towards ART adherence, and the key finding was that receiving ART counseling was significantly associated with ART medication adherence. So the article reported this research project in Ivory Coast. So as a way of discussion, understanding these barriers towards ART adherence, especially for these key populations, could be a foremost intervention among this group, as these studies have shown a significant increase in medication adherence when there is the intervention of counseling. So our studies complement findings from Mountain 2014 and RESA 2015. Although this evidence was based on one article, so we believe is not substantive enough and so cannot be generalized. So our limitation could be the search of one database, and also that probably very few studies on the effect of counseling and psychosocial support on ART adherence for key population has been done in Africa. So we therefore recommend further studies in this area. And in conclusion, key population could be an ideal population to benefit from interventions such as counseling, as our finding reviewed an increased ART adherence among this population that benefited from the intervention. Now, while we had one study for our work, we had to create a hypothetical data so that we could do a meta-analysis. And we used the meta-analysis model was the random effect. And from these studies, you can see from the data we hypothesized, it shows in favor of the no canceling. You know, that those that received no canceling were more likely to adhere, you know, specifically from the overall effect. It shows that those that have no counseling were 1.92 times more likely to have effective ART adherence. And this finding was statistically significant as our p-value was 0.05. Then we also did a subgroup analysis, divided it into case control and the cohort. The case control, both the case control and the cohort didn't show a significant association when we did a subgroup analysis based on study design. And finally, another subgroup analysis we did was according to the key populations, FSW, MSM, and IDU. And FSW and MSM didn't show a significant association between the intervention and the outcome, but the IDU, those that inject drugs, it showed that non-canceling was, those that were not canceled were 2.12 times more likely to adhere to their medication. Our heterogeneity result was significant. So that those were our meta-analysis findings, but from a hypothetical data, meaning a data that was not real. And these are our references. Thank you, everyone, for
Thank
listening.
you very much. That was good. Thank you very much for the presentation and keeping to time as well. So I could open the forum. If you have any comment, questions you want to raise for group 2. Posi, I see you raising your hand. You want to say something?
Yes, thank you for the beautiful presentation. I have 2 questions actually. The first one is, it seems a quality assessment was not done, or maybe I missed that because I was not mentioning if the...
It was done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then for the articles,
Yeah.
did you at any point search the references within the one article if you could get more?
Okay, we didn't do that. No, we didn't do snowballing. No, we just used just that article.
Because I'm thinking if maybe if you had, you might have gotten some 1 or 2 more that could have aided the meta-analysis.
Yes, we were actually trying to stick to our learning. Maybe yeah, in going forward, maybe we could actually try the snowballing method. But just to stay with the objective of this class, we decided not to do anything outside the scope of this our learning.
All right, yeah, well done.
Thank you.
Any more comments? Any question? Okay. Yeah, group 2. I think you You have done a good job, which is quite impressive that you have been able to follow the outline of what we have covered this week. So I'm quite impressed with this you have done. One thing is, if you go to where you have the PICO or PAO, yeah, here, yeah, please mute your mic, everyone, please mute your mic if you're not speaking. Okay, so here, because you were actually looking at intervention studies, you say your inclusion criteria, intervention studies, and then you included the PAO, because if you have an intervention, then it should have a comparison.
Comparison, yes, it's true.
So
It's
I don't know why you
oversight,
use
yeah.
PAO and
It's
not
an oversight.
PICO.
It's an oversight. Yeah, very true. Yeah, you're correct. It's an oversight.
Okay. Yeah, that is fine. Okay.
Yes, actually, our comparison would be non-counseling. So as we were not finding papers about psychosocial and non-psychosocial support, we then put PO.
Yeah, because
like
if you
exposure to counseling.
Yeah, even at the exposure, even if it's an observational studies, the cohort you have there, it's either you have counseling or something else, no counseling. Yes. So there should be kind of comparison you use, and in your forest plot, you already indicated favors counseling, favors no counseling. So you should. Yes. You should indicate that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
True.
Yeah.
True. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Another thing is that in your conclusion, of course, you only had one study, and this is from the table you showed, a retrospective cohort study. Yes. But eventually, you were interested as well as in interventional studies, and you didn't find interventional studies, and you know that in the hierarchy of evidence, interventional studies would have been the most appropriate here. I think your conclusion should indicate that the need for improved study design in this area, because this retrospective cohort study would have much bias and will not be the best we can use. So in that aspect, in going forward, you should be able to make that kind of recommendation. Okay, from your own perspective, if I ask, if you're doing this in real life, what decisions do you think, from the experience you have gained here, what decisions or other things you would have considered here now?
Okay, for me, if we're doing this in real life, our limitations will guide, will guide our next decision. Like first, limitation on searching one database.
Yeah.
Secondly, probably increase the intervention. Maybe not concentrate on only counseling and psychosocial support. Maybe look at other interventions.
Yeah.
Thirdly, maybe apart from exploring Africa, maybe we can just put it as a cohort of non-developing to increase the scope.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yeah. I think that is the area I think maybe would have enhanced. Since we are still interested in key population, maybe these other areas could also help to see if we could get more studies to incorporate in our work. So I don't know if my other group members have something to add.
Group 2 members, do you have something else to add to that? If you're doing this study in real life, what other considerations will you have?
Yeah, I agree with Felix that I would search in other database, and other than see in Africa, I would see globally. And then in my meta-analysis is if I would find some paper, I would define by regions and then highlight that in Africa we don't have studies like this. So it would be good to do interventional studies to find this kind of evidence here in Africa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any more? Okay, to my next question. So what is your plan for your group? Do you plan to take this forward to conduct a real systematic review on this topic?
Well, based on our discussion, we plan to take this further, but we have not decided if we will continue on this title or we would use something else. Yes, but we plan to work as a team to at least, you know, practicalize what we have learned in generating one systematic review for a start. But the title we have not agreed upon.
Okay, great. I think that is important because that will help you to now begin to streamline the skills that you have learned here.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, Group 2, for this. Please send it to my email later on.
Yes, sir. We will.
Okay, let's go to Group 3. Felix, you can stop sharing now. Group 3.
Good afternoon. Group 3 is going to present, and I will request Beatrice to give the presentation, and then Linus and David will answer any questions that will come. This is because we are doing this to allow everyone in the group to have equal sharing of the presentation. So I think Beatrice can take it on. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So it's 10 minutes, and then we start discussion. Okay.
So Beatrice, can you take it on? We have 10 minutes only. What is happening?
You need to unmute your mic if you're speaking. Remember that. Otherwise, we don't hear you.
Hello, guys. I'm sorry. Yeah. So this is our group, and we were looking for a psychological effect of COVID-19 in children. And then on children, and it was a global systematic review and meta-analysis. So we took the presentation, we did the presentation taking into account what we have learned during the classes. So this is the outline that I think you all know, are familiar with that. So our objective was related to one research question, that what is the psychological effect of COVID-19 pandemic on children? And we were looking to assess the effect of COVID-19 exposure on lockdown mental health of children between the ages of 10 to 18 years old. So the rationale for this study was there being measures around the globe regarding lockdown, use of masks, etc. And we have been hearing about some mental or psychological effects of this lockdown, of all the measures that were being done by different governments. And we would like to see what are the impacts of these measures to children. Our methods, we look for studies, reviews, I can say cross-sectional studies and randomized controlled trials. And the participants were all children and participants with mental disorders related to COVID-19, sorry. And the studies, the types of exposure were studies that investigated the role of COVID-19 in mental health of children. So this is our strategy in PubMed. So I'm not going on detail this. And the methods were, continue with the methods with screening studies, titles and abstracts independently by 2 reviewers, and any discrepancies were resolved by consensus. Full test copies were obtained, and eligibility for inclusion independently were independently assessed by 2 reviewers, and discrepancies were also resolved by consensus. And we look also the references of some of the studies that we had before. So we include participants were no with any gender or ethnic origin below 19 years old. I'm sorry I said that 10 to 18, but it's below 19 years old, and any form of confinement, and that psychological effects, okay? And we had no control group and no or timeline. And the exclusion criteria was a psychiatric clinical history before the confinement. So this is our PRISMA workflow chart. So we found in PubMed 277 studies, and additional records were 5. So after the duplicates, we remain with 227, and we screened 237, and we excluded 212 based on titles. And then we assessed the titles and abstracts. And then we assessed full tests, 15 only. And then the full tests, 11 full tests were excluded because they were not linked to our objective. The studies included were full and for qualitative analysis, and for quantitative in meta-analysis. Data extraction was done by 2 reviewers independently. And so they look for relevant information in data into a customized data extraction sheet. And discrepancies were resolved by discussion, and descriptive tables were used to summarize the literature and characteristics of the study. And study characteristics were first author, year, type of study, and so on. And for quality assessment, we used the AAEP HPP. And the 4 studies that we used were at poor quality after assessment. So but we move on with these studies for learning purposes. The synthesis was presented in both narrative and tabular form. It was not possible to perform a meta-analysis using random effect models, not possible to use I-squared characteristics of the domain heterogeneity, not possible to perform sensitivity analysis, and we wanted to use Beck and Egger tests to explore publication biases, but this was not possible again. And review manager meta-analysis for software is yet to be used when proper systematic review is done afterwards. So we have our findings. This is a table of findings. I'm not also going into detail, but here are the characteristics we're looking for in the studies. As you can see, the quality of assessment of all the studies was weak. And this is the analysis of it's a sample of another systematic review. So we looked the contents and comments for each other. Okay, so as you can see, I'm not going to also into detail, but these are the contents that we're looking for in the studies. So our conclusion was that it needs to do a comprehensive search for relevant articles related to the topic. There is a vast major opportunity of submitting the protocol and proceed with carrying out the quality systematic review. We achieved our objective, that was not the process that the team went through. And we also had a chance to practice using hypothetical results, and we have developed a forest plot. So this is the end. I see that there are some, let me try to see if, okay. So Theo, would you like to go on with this? Hello?
Thank you very much. On this note, I would like to just supplement what Beatrice has said by saying that after identifying, going through the searches using PubMed and identifying that we could not get any article for review which was related to our topic, we automatically went through the processes and we found out that it was not easy for us. Then we were given advice that we look for hypothetical type of data and then we practice the results which we can conclude on. This is one of them. So this is a meta-analysis of all estimates of effects of lockdown on psychological health of children. And then you can see that according to the results, that the forest plots identifies it helps us. Okay, the forest plot helps us identify the overlapping situation, which will help us to identify whether there is heterogeneity or not. So heterogeneity or not. So we identified that there is a lot of heterogeneity in this forest plot because there is a lot of non-overlappincy of the. So then we identify that overall the odds ratio is 1.25, meaning that there is a 25% elevated risk of children who are in lockdown to get psychological conditions. And then we also identify passionately that the p-value is actually than 0.05, which gives this result significant association between the outcome and between the outcome and exposure. And then we identify that the heterogeneity is tau square and I squared. So these are they do random meta-analysis, of course, and we identify that the I squared of 6% is actually indicative of a considerable heterogeneity, which cannot be explained only by the sampling error alone. We may be having a lot of errors that would have resulted in the I square at 96%. And so you identify that also the tau square of 0.06 is very
so you can start to round off now, group 3.
Okay, so that's exactly what we are trying to say. And in conclusion, therefore, we will identify that using these results, the results are of low quality because of heterogeneity. We identify that there is basically a relationship between lockdown and psychological effects on children. Thank you very much. So I think we can end here.
Okay, thank you, group 3. That was good. So let me open up to other everyone to comment. Any question or any comment arising from this? Yeah, Oban.
Oh, I would like to mention that our coordinator, we also have words. We also have some other analysis that we did in Word, which I think we can use in case there is any need to use them, especially doing a meta-analysis by group, by region, by experimental or cross-sectional studies. So we did all those subgroups. In case there is any need, we can put them up. So thank you.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Yeah, Oban.
All right, just to learn, is it appropriate to have used them or included review articles? I mean, do you use review articles to do a review? I thought it's supposed to be primary research. That's my first concern. And then the second one is the presenters did a good job and I must commend them. But I'm wondering if in their initial search, and not finding primary articles, they couldn't have decided to change the topic, especially considering that COVID-19 is new and it is expected that you may not find studies where you can do meta-analysis. They could have changed the topic. But by and large, they've done a good job. So I don't know if I can have answer to the first question.
Thank you very much. I think I can answer the first question. Then also the second question can be answered anyway. So the first question is about a systematic, reviewing a systematic review. All
Yes.
right. We identify there is a systematic review, but we also wanted to identify the quality of the systematic review, basing on the fact that we didn't find any relevant article. So our aim is not to review a systematic review, but to find reasons for our protocol to stand out, to do our own systematic review in order to get a consistent results. So we wanted to do this review, but we also found out that this was not a systematic review as per se, according to how Dr. Brian taught us. So it gave us confidence that we can actually proceed with a protocol which is official, and we do our own systematic review, which is relevant, consistent, and valid. That is the reason.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. The second one was about.
My point on the second question, yes, it was a good question. Probably you might have asked the same question from the group that presented earlier. Yes, we know that COVID is relatively new, but I think if I got it right, what Bright discussed with us is that the issue is that is there any conclusive evidence, for example, regarding the effect of the lockdown and COVID-19 on psychological health of children? No. So the evidence is not the one to find. Of course, going through the screening process, we could have dropped it because it doesn't work. But I think the presenters mentioned that for the sake of the exercises, and I think in the middle of the course we discussed with the facilitator, right? And that just for the sake of the exercise we could go through. And that is why we came up with the hypothetical case, which enabled us to learn through the process, the meta-analysis. But I agree with you that this is not an ideal topic that we could have gone through with this.
Yeah, just to add to that, one thing I mentioned issue of empty reviews, because the goal of doing a systematic review will serve purposes for decision making, clinical decision, policy decision, and research decision. So it is not to develop a topic and then you get to a place where you don't find any study and you stop there. The first thing is for you to, as I said, to develop a research question that is relevant. And you have to maintain that is this research question relevant? Is this research question relevant? Yes, it's relevant because we have seen how this pandemic has affected the world. And you mentioned something that is important. The lockdown scenarios that we have may have psychological influence on people, and that is happening. Please, if you are not speaking, you can mute. So this is, I think, a relevant question. And in that, you have to set out to address this question. And addressing this question, it is your first point of thought is not whether you find a study or not. You have to maintain relevance on that. And then you search and eventually find that no study has actually addressed this important question. That in itself is a conclusion that is important, and that conclusion will be relevant to research, that we need to now do studies to investigate this important question. So you don't get to that point, you say, well, there's no study, then I change my topic and do something else. No. The important thing is the relevance of the topic you are investigating, and if the topic you're investigating is important, then you need to come out with the relevant recommendation that needs to be made. It also goes for when you have low quality studies. One of the recommendations that will come from there with regards to that topic is that we need high quality studies for us to really understand this particular topic. So I wouldn't advise that you change the topic because there are no studies. Your systematic review will eventually turn out to be an empty review, but with key and critical recommendations to advance that field of research. Okay, any other question or comment to group 3? Okay, one thing I didn't understand, group 3, is that you looked at the mental health of children between 10 and 18 years. Was there any reason for you to do this? I didn't get it from your presentation.
Yes, sir. So with respect to that, we were looking at children that could respond to cognitively to questions, specific questions relating to psychological and mental health, about how they feel, if they felt any form of stress, anger, depression, pain. And then we taught children that were at least 10 years old could handle questions like that. However, if in our presentation, we specifically said children below 19 years old. So
yeah, I'm just looking at the slide in front of us. They see the last sentence there, or the last line.
Yes. Yeah, that was an oversight on our part.
It was a mistake, yeah.
It was an oversight on our part. So in the exclusion criteria, we decided that we're going to look at anybody below 19 years old.
Okay. And you know that if you're talking about children, it should actually be below 18 and above, already adults.
All right, sir.
Okay. If I go to let's go to your forest plot. Let me look at this quickly. To your forest plot, if you can take me to your forest plot. Yeah, Theo, when you mentioned, you said that the risk estimate you have is 1.25, and then you also have very high I-square value with very low p-value, indicating that the studies are very highly heterogeneous. So what do you make of this estimate here? How meaningful is it for you? Group 3?
Yeah, well, the issue here is like we rightly said in the beginning of our presentation, we barely found, should I say, specific studies that were looking at different psychological aspects. However, the heterogeneity of most of the studies showed that a lot of people looked at most of the studies we found looked at different aspects. So maybe looking at stress, some maybe looking at anxiety, some maybe looking at fear. And it was not, should I say, aggregately grouped into one whole package. So subsequently, based on what we are seeing in front of us, we could conclude that the effect was almost nearly negligible, in the sense that the heterogeneity was quite much.
Yeah, sorry, but I don't understand the question you asked. But
yeah, what I mean is that if you look at the estimate, you have the combined odds ratio of 125.
Yeah.
1.25, and then confidence interval 1.07 to 1.45. And then if you look at your I-square, is highly large, almost 100% there. indicating that the studies are highly heterogeneous.
Mm.
And so what do you make of this estimate here, this 1.25 odds ratio vis-a-vis the I-square?
1.25 is okay, but the confidence interval is so close to 1. It's almost overlapping 1. So fine, as you mentioned, heterogeneity is very high. So yeah, I would say that there is no very strong evidence here. But when we did a sub-study analysis, it was especially for the region, it was a bit different. It was a bit different. Unfortunately, we couldn't show it here.
Okay.
But
We can.
I-square went to about 80, if I remember correctly, 80 or 85. It's still very high, but the odds ratios went to, the risk was, if I remember correctly, it should be about 1.57, and the confidence interval was a bit tighter. And
Shall I put it up?
No need. So there's one thing I want to emphasize here to bring your mind back also to what we have discussed. So I mentioned that when you do this kind of thing and then you observe that there is very huge heterogeneity. So the emphasis should not be on the overall estimate anymore.
Yeah.
The emphasis would be investigating the heterogeneity.
Yeah.
You understand? And the point Linus raised, I think, are important to say that the different outcomes the studies have mentioned could be a point here, so that some mention stress and different kinds of things. So then that will be the question that you ask, given these differences. If these outcomes eventually do not represent the same thing, should we combine the estimates? That should be an important question. And then if we combine the estimates, should we emphasize the combined, or should we even go further to investigate this and then focus on the issues that influence the heterogeneity? So yeah, so in this case, the point is that with this higher I-square, don't emphasize the combined estimate because it doesn't have much meaning. What we see here is that the studies are heterogeneous. And in going forward for you on your topic, that should be one thing that you can bring out in this. The studies addressing this topic are different in different ways, maybe in design, in the way they have defined their outcomes and exposure. So in going forward to enhance this topic, we need standardized measures of our parameters, as well as standardized processes of undertaking research on this. Yes, David?
Yeah, well, Bright, would it have been better if we, for example, look at a sub-study for each of the outcome, if we have a cluster of them, say 3 different specific outcomes, looking at what we're discussing now, I think it would have been better rather than doing it per region or per type of study or something.
Yeah, so that is the important thing there, because from that is why I said that the I-square should be judged in relation to the expert knowledge of what you're doing there. What is the most important aspect or source of heterogeneity here, you see? So you need to consider that. If it is the outcome level, you see that outcomes are differentially defined, then that is a very important source of heterogeneity. And then you can do subgroup analysis at that level instead of the study design or region. Of course, you could still do all those, but if you suspect this with your knowledge of this topic, then that could be an additional subgroup you could do.
Right, the very last question. We need some clarification. We had a little bit discussion about the tau square, the chi-square, the I-square, and the Z square as they are presented here. Like, what do we have to look and for what? I think we've discussed a lot about the I-square, but what about the chi-square and the tau-square?
I mean, the chi-square and the degree of freedom, all these are used to derive the I-square, as normally when we do the statistical test, normal statistics. So the chi-square here and the degree of freedom and the Z statistics are used to derive the I-square. But the tau-square here appears because you have done the random effects. So it's giving you the value of the tau-square that is used in the weighting. You have shown the weight there. So if you do the fixed effect, the tau-square will not appear there. But you did random effects and it's giving you the tau-square and showing you that in addition to the inverse of the variance, the fixed effect used, the additional tau-square, this is the value. And this value is constant in weighting all the studies.
Okay.
All right, that's good. So,
Okay, so the last thing, sorry, we have taken time for group 3, but let's go back to the last, the previous slide on your conclusion there. I just want to highlight something there. On the conclusion. Yeah. Yeah, so you mentioned that there's opportunity in going forward to carry out quality systematic review, but this is actually should be on conducting quality studies.
Yeah.
You understand? Primary studies, because
okay.
It's not on the systematic review itself. It is that the studies that should be conducted should be of high quality. Okay, so what is your plan taking this forward? Group 3, do you have plan to do this in real life?
Yeah, actually we were trying to discuss about it, that we can take it on because it seems a gray area, and then it can give us vast opportunity to do both primary studies and then later on do systematic reviews. So I think we shall take it on from there, because we are all from different countries, of course. About 5 countries represented here. So it's very important that we go ahead with this. We shall make a strong one now.
Yeah, I think we were also thinking that probably if we had searched some other databases, we would have had a few more studies. But this is an interesting question that needs to be answered, like you rightly said. It's not whether it fits into systematic review or whatever. This is an interesting question. To what extent does the lockup, lockdown, or whatever we call it, wherever, have effect on the psychological effect? I have a friend whose children have started chewing their clothes. When they wear the shirt, they put the shirt into them and started chewing just because of this lockdown. We want to find out whether we can sort out a few things from the other database. And if we get some conclusions on this, I think that will be a contribution to science in this area.
Yeah, I think it's good plan to take it forward, and then also do a systematic review to continue to enhance your skills in this. Okay, thank you very much, group 3. Let's go to group 4.
Welcome.
Group 4, are you there?
Dr. Bright, I thought you said that we'll be having group 4 after the break, sir.
Yeah, we didn't have group 1 presenting. So do you want to do it after the break? Of course. Is group 1 ready? Is group 1 ready? Emmanuel, you were mentioned to be presenting for group 1. Are you ready? If you are speaking, you can check your mic if it's muted. Then you're muted.
Okay, yeah, group 1 is ready and Patience is presenting for us.
Okay. Yeah, please go ahead. Patience, your mic is muted. Unmute first before you speak. Okay, group one, you really need to coordinate yourself because we can't seem to see you here. So group four, do you think you're ready now to go?
Hello, Bright.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your mic is muted again, Patience.
Yes, I want to share my screen, but the information I have is incomplete. I rather have it on my phone, so I'm trying to put it on the tablet I'm using.
So what is the problem now? Is it what you have? Is it what Emmanuel has sent to the chat?
No, that is incomplete. It doesn't contain the introduction and even the title of the paper.
So you mean what Emmanuel
Can
has
I
shared?
suggest if
Yes,
another group is
if
ready?
you can repost it.
Maybe group 4 could just take this point now. And
Yes,
so that
please.
you go
So
forward.
group one, you really need to organize yourself now, and so that we can get this. Organize yourself and come back later. Group four, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, sir. Sharing our screen. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
This is Group 4. My name is Meji. Presenting for Group 4. Of course, we forgot to put the names of other group members on, but Job, Margaret, Edward, Shegun, Lucia, and Prince, and myself got together to do this thing.
Please, sorry, when you send it to me, later, remember to put the group numbers.
All right, sir. We'll do that, sir. Okay, we worked on the effect of faith and healing on patients in diabetic treatments, a systematic review. And that's the title of Group 4's work. The background of the work. One of the identified global health emergence in the 21st century is diabetics. This is a big burden for low and middle income economics. The risk factors for its onset have been documented and includes stress, heredity, as stated by Chigom in 2020. The adult onset of diabetes often presents with complications with its attendant effect of the economics and well-being of the patient. That was from WHO 2004. The management of diabetics depends on lifestyle changes and medications. The effectiveness of any of these modalities have been reported in the literature, as stated by Jabal et al. In 2017, to suggest that there is an effect of faith and healing, such as prayer, laying of hands, use of anointing oil, yoga, meditation, just to name a few, to offer needed support to diabetic patients. This systematic review is conducted to harmonize scientific studies and extend knowledge in this area. The big question: what is the effect of faith and healing on patients in diabetic treatment? Of course, we did the PICO analysis of it. So for PEP stands for diabetic patients. The intervention here is the faith and healing, that the different type or aspect of faith and healing that each of the participants would employ, and of course trying to lower the HbA1c or other metabolic measures. The method: we developed a comprehensive search strategy for screening published studies in PubMed. Of course, we were told we were restricted to PubMed database, and so this is our search strategy, as we're helped out by Professor Bright himself to search. Screening and data extractions. We had to screen, and these are the procedures that we engage in screening. First of all, we sourced for our material after using a search engine. After sorting the materials, we exported the materials in all into Rhine, and then we checked for duplicates, and then we looked at the articles by title and abstract. And of course, every member of the group was shared into two groups with an arbiter. That's Dr. Job, who was the person who we used to as the arbiter to resolve any disagreement amongst the group. Of course, for the protocol, we use Prisma, the Prisma 2009 flow diagram. In all, we found 41 articles that suited our topic. Of the 41, we didn't get any other article for other sources. Of course, we limited our search to PubMed as we're told. In terms of duplicate, we had none. There's none. We screened 41, and then we found that out of the 41 that was screened, 32 of them were excluded for various reasons. And then eventually, we had 9 that was eligible for the study. But out of the 9, we excluded 2 again because those 2 were qualitative studies. So we had to exclude those 2. And then studies, so we eventually had 7 that was left for the systematic review and meta-analysis. Our results. Full text studies extracted differ in duration of time. The studies were, the criteria that we used to exclude some of them was because the time that the studies were concluded in differed, the level of analysis also differed, and the reporting system for some of the studies also differed. Hence, they were mismatched and it became a little difficult for us to conduct the meta-analysis part of the research. So in essence, you will find out that in the course of this research, we didn't quite do any meta-analysis because there were differences in the level of analysis from study to study. The length of time that was used for the studies differed, so there was a mismatch. And therefore, presentation of our results follows the format that has been listed below. Paper, the author, the year of publication, the method used, the findings, and the conclusions. So these are the papers. The first paper was a randomized controlled trial paper. That's the style that was used. And the authors are stated, the method that was used was randomized controlled. The findings was that there was a decline in both peer and yoga by 5.9 to 6.5 in comparison to the control, which was 0.3% only in the yoga group. The effect was, in conclusion for the first paper, was that after using yoga for the period of time, we found out that the longer the students stayed using yoga, the more benefit that they had. And we found that based on the number, the percentage, the sample space, we rated that paper moderate. So the second paper was titled a combined yoga practices for nearly, somebody was trying to help me, combined Ayurveda and yoga practices for newly diagnosed type 2 diabetes mellitus. It's a controlled trial test too, and this test was done and published in 2017. It's a 3-month, 3-arm controlled trial, fasting blood sugar and post-prandial blood sugar level take. Now, a total of 122 people were involved in this research. And the research shows that groups 1 and 2 obtain better fasting blood sugar and post-branded blood sugar values during and at the end of the intervention. And that group, and then group 1 ended with the lowest values, which is less than 0.001. The conclusion is that this study of yoga for the treatment of diabetes shows that all male prisoners could benefit from yoga prison program. So the program was actually carried out in a prison, and then we find that our rating for that particular paper is that is moderate. The third paper.
1 minute more. 1 minute more.
Okay, so just like that, through the 7 papers that we had. Now, conclusion is that the studies had different populations. So our inclusion criteria and different measures were a reason why we couldn't embark on the meta-analysis as others did. Although it looks like the faith and healing can be a strategy to improve. It can be a strategy to improve and control diabetes among patients. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Group 4. Now, you have questions, comments for Group 4?
Yeah, yes, I have a question.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm looking at the results that were presented in the last table. They seem to be convertible to fit the meta-analysis. At least when Group 2 presented, only one paper was significant for discussion. Now, the results here appears okay to be either converted to the format that the meta-analysis will take. And also comment about the results is that there is a positive change. As long as there is a change, then there should have been a meta-analysis worked out on these results. Then another question: did confounders? Was confounders considered in this meta-analysis?
Prof, thank you for your question. First of all, in our group, we didn't know that you could actually do a meta-analysis with a paper because we felt that meta-analysis was a pool of aggregate of statistics from more than one paper. And so that's why we felt that one paper would not be enough pool to do a meta-analysis. However, the confounders, because there were no regularities, and we found out that the papers were so much different. Those were some of the things that made us feel that we couldn't actually do a meta-analysis well, because the inclusion criteria that we had used, most of the papers didn't meet them.
Okay, anything more?
Yes, I thank the group for doing a good job, but I wanted to appreciate maybe a bit more of the challenge they may have had in not getting articles for meta-analysis. I don't know if I can take a look at the title again. Please, sorry. The title, the first slide.
Okay.
Please just take us to this title.
Okay, a randomized, this is the title. A randomized controlled trial.
No, the title of the presentation.
The presentation title, the first page.
Thank you. Yeah, so here you're looking at effect of faith and healing on, patients in diabetes treatment. I would say there's a bit of a conflict in the title here, because healing itself, it's a synonym of treatment. So maybe that's not the word you had as intention. For me, I think your intention may have been effect of faith and maybe religiosity or spirituality on outcome of diabetes. And if that title had been refined, maybe in this light, your keywords may have also been revised to probably get more articles, including the ones that you could use for a meta-analysis. So I think the title in there,
or even faith-based
exactly.
Intervention.
Yes, so I think the titling may have been the origin of the challenge in getting sufficient articles. Okay. But I mean, Prof may correct us in that regard. The second concern I had was for the Prisma chart. somewhere down the line, if you can take a look back again to the Prisma chart, yeah, there's a place you excluded. Yeah, the second to the last box, you excluded the qualitative. You excluded some studies due to qualitative synthesis, right?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Because they were qualitative studies. Now I'm thinking that either from the title of a study or from the abstract, you should have known a study that is qualitative and therefore excluded ab initio. So that such exclusion should have occurred much earlier and not right down.
Sorry, let me come in. With regards to the protocol, that is the Prisma.
Yes.
If you look at the flow chart, it's looking at the balance of both approaches. But however, our restriction for this particular class was to search for quantitative articles. Therefore, in short, and when we got to the full text articles, our studies that were left with us, even from the beginning when we started, we were dealing with quantitative studies. So if we get to this point where we are supposed to record qualitative synthesis, which is not really our interest, then obviously it becomes zero because our article selection didn't include qualitative study. That is why we have zero over there.
Okay, let me come in here. Maybe it was my oversight. The Prisma here, the way it flows, the last box there is only for those studies that you included in the meta-analysis. And you can see in the brackets, they mentioned meta-analysis. And the box before that says studies included in qualitative synthesis. What it means here is not qualitative studies. What it means is studies that were included in narrative synthesis. So qualitative synthesis there is synonymous with narrative synthesis. So for this particular study, since you were unable to do a meta-analysis, you should have 7 studies on top there. The qualitative synthesis is synonymous to narrative or using only text to describe what you have done. So for those studies that have not done meta-analysis based on what they have described here, they should end up in the qualitative synthesis so that the meta-analysis part, the last box, will have 0 instead. So you should interchange that. 7 goes to the box before and 0 goes down.
Okay.
I don't know if this is clear for
Noted,
everyone.
sir. Yeah, we'll effect the change, sir.
Yeah. Then another thing is when group 4 was making a discussion, I actually visited them when they developed the search strategy. And we know that, which they clearly mentioned, that diabetes is not curable. You just manage it. But coming to the faith-based healing arena, what is actually their motivation? Is the motivation to manage it, or the motivation is to cure it? If you go and you are anointed, if you go, you receive prayer, if you go, you have pastoral care or meditation or mediation, or however you call it. What is their ultimate goal? Is the ultimate goal just to manage your diabetes, or is their ultimate goal to cure? I think that is one question you need to think carefully if you have this kind of question you have raised here. So for those diabetic patients that are sick and they go to the churches, or they go to the mosque, or they go to wherever they want to see the imam or pastor, what is their goal of going there? And once intervention is made, what is the role of that intervention? So these are the things you need to think so that you can know what your question will be and what your outcomes and such strategies will be.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Another thing is that if you go to, where you have the PICO or here you have the PIO, and if you go to your description of the studies, you said, for instance, yoga versus control. And inherently, you have control. You have control group there, and you have not included the C here. So you need to be careful when you do this, because you can see that your question is effect. When you talk about effect in epidemiology, we don't want to use it for observational studies, because observational studies cannot help us to understand effect. Observational studies only allow us to see associations. So once you have effect, of course, this term is something people misuse in many places. But once you have effect, the underlying meaning epidemiologically is that you're looking at interventions. And once you are looking at interventions, you have moved away from the arena of observational studies to intervention studies. And inherently, if you look at intervention, you should have a control. So you need to think about this carefully when you're developing your question, so that you are able to differentiate between observational studies and intervention studies, and what could be the PICO elements you have there. I know that some of you have mentioned in the evaluation the need to have this course with those who already have some background knowledge, because some of the terminologies and some of the concepts are not concepts you are used before now. So please take note of that. The other thing is that for group 4, you did not indicate, you made quality assessment, but you did not indicate what tool you have used for your quality assessment of the studies. You didn't indicate that. Okay, so you need to be sure that you have the right process and what you have used to make your and finally, when you make your recommendation, your conclusion, you did not make a recommendation based on what you have done now. What will be the next step for you in addressing this question you have posed? I expected to see something like that in your conclusion with regards to research. What would be your recommendation going forward?
We recommend that further studies should be done, but then they have to look at the time period and the measurement, because our meta-analysis, we couldn't do it because of the duration and the different comparison groups that were being used. So,
great. So you need to reflect that when you make your conclusion.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, I saw some hands. You want to?
Yeah, I wanted to ask also. I don't know if I'm recognized.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. In presentations of this nature, should our conclusion reflect what the working title is? So for instance, let me use this last group that presented. Their title was looking at faith, healing, So in such a presentation, will the conclusion of the presentation at the end of the day reflect what the title is, or it will be a reflection of what the analysis of the various studies have been? What will be the nature of the conclusion?
Well, I think when you make a conclusion is always a conclusion. It should reflect to provide answer to the question you have posed. The conclusion is to allow people to see that you have answered your question. And then if you have not answered your question, you should be able to also highlight to the readers why you have not been able to answer your question. So I think they reflected there that it seems that faith-based interventions may play a role. I think they mentioned that even though the data they have generated here have not allowed them to be confident in saying that. But they failed to mention what could be done next if you are not able to provide a clear answer to this. Yeah, I agree with you. You should reflect the question you have posed, and then you should also highlight the processes that you have encountered in the process of generating this evidence.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on this?
Yes.
Yes. So please start.
Yeah, something small that I can add as an observation is maybe it would have been because of the time challenge, or it was short prepared, but next time the presentation can have a font that can be read by the participants, so that as you're explaining, the participants could be following suit. Otherwise, if the wording is very small, sometimes the context may not come out properly. So that was my simple advice for this presentation.
Yeah, thank you very much, Theo. I think that is one thing I've observed also throughout the presentations. And of course, when you present things, there are skills, there are ways you can present in clearer way, which is beyond the discourse. But yes, that is quite admitted. I think for every one of us, you need to find a way to continue to improve in communicating. There are rules of how your text on a slide, because that could really push readers away to concentrate, especially when we have this kind of online format. Yes, so that should be noted by every one of us. There are recommendations, there are tools you can use to learn to do this. Okay, Lucia, you raise your hand.
Yes. I'm part of this group. I just have one question. When we go back to that question on PICO, can we use the comparison as like normal treatment of diabetes? Because in all the groups, in all the studies, they were comparing like two or three groups, and all of them, they were compared with the normal treatment of diabetes. So is that correct to use the C as the normal treatment of diabetes?
Yeah, of course, many times when you do this, you have preliminary knowledge of what is being done. But even if you don't have that, because we know when you do a randomized control trial, usually people may compare to normal treatment, people may compare to other treatment, people may compare to controls. So for your C, you could say that you are interested in studies that have compared, for instance, to normal treatment or other treatment or placebo and so on. So you can give different options at that level, because we know that when a randomized control trial is done, these are some of the options that are there.
Okay. The other thing is that regarding to do the meta-analysis on this, the problem was when we were looking for all these studies individually, what we saw is that even they have the same outcome, but they take the measurements in different times, like the fasting glucose and postprandial glucose and HbA1c, they took in different times. So that's in different point times. That's why we think that it's not possible to have like homogeneity in comparing these results. I don't know if it's that correct thing.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. That is a very, very, very sensible decision to make, because you can't force the studies unless you go back to the authors and then you're able to have them reanalyze the data for you so that you have common follow-up times for the studies, or when you have the individual patient's data, then you can standardize the time of follow-up. But if you don't do that, let's say you have a study that has followed patient for 2 months, Another study has followed patient for 6 months. Another study has followed patient for 4 months. These are differences that from some areas, differences can be important even in days, even hours, even in weeks. So you have to consider that. And if you see that these studies measuring the outcomes at these different time periods will not be comparable and you cannot put them together, then you decide not to put them together because you can't force that. Because if you put them together, what will be the conclusion readers will have? What kind of decision can you make from there? So I think that is a very sensible decision to make, not to pull them. Okay, let's take some break. And when we come back, we'll go to group 5, then group 6, and come back to group 1. I hope group 1 has been able to sort themselves out. But we'll take 5 and 6, then we'll come to group 1. Let's come back at 20 minutes to 3 my time.
Prof. Enwaro, please, can you send us to the breakout rooms? I need to discuss something with my group.
With your group, eh?
Yeah.
Okay, I will do that. That is group 1, eh?
Group 5.
Group 5.
Yeah.
Okay, so the other ones, let's take a break and come back.
Bright, can you take us to group 6?
I think all groups maybe might be just better.
Yes,
yeah, I mean, you can't do it one group at a time. I will send all groups, and the other ones can, of course, when you go to your group, you can return to the main room while this ones continue.
They've got
Okay. We can start with group 5, please.
Thank you. Please, I'm sharing the slide. Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon to everyone. We are group 5 and we are presenting indoor air pollution and risk of childhood asthma in developing countries, a systematic review and meta-analysis. Please, I hope everyone can hear me. And please, I had internet issues. Okay. Yes. Please, this is the outline for our presentation. Bronchial asthma, which is popularly and commonly referred to as asthma, is an airway disease that affects the upper respiratory tract and the leading cause of childhood morbidity and mortality. Globally, it affects a lot of children and even contributes to about 24.8 million disability-adjusted life years. Most asthma deaths poor and weak health systems in developing countries, as well as poor primary health care issues. One of the key factors that has been identified to contribute to childhood asthma is indoor air pollution. And the justification is that since individuals and mostly children stay indoor, either in the classrooms or even at home, there is that long indoor diurnal duration. Studies to bring together the various evidences that has been explored in different countries to arrive at an overall picture of whether indoor air pollution is a risk factor or not has not yet been done, and this is what we try to achieve in our study. We believe that our findings can contribute to improving existing regional and national policies on air pollution control and prevention of childhood asthma. So we asked, this is what we want to answer at the end of the day, is indoor air pollution related to the risk of childhood asthma in developing countries? So we want to identify and critically appraise the impact of indoor air pollution on the risk of childhood asthma in developing countries. Secondly, we want to specifically evaluate whether the impact of indoor air pollution on the risk of childhood asthma differs across geographic contexts. Our eligibility, we included studies that are experimental and observational, but we made sure that we did not include reviews, that's in systematic reviews, case studies, case series, and animal. Our participants were children who were below 18 years. That is, our studies should consider only children who are below 18 years as defined by the Convention on the Rights of the Child and who are residing in developing countries. So our study should have been conducted in the developing countries. Our exposure is indoor air pollution and our outcome is asthma. We searched PubMed and our duration was between 2001 to 2020. These are some of the mesh terms that we used, and we included only articles that were published, that was in English, sorry. And we did a review after extracting from PubMed, we sent it to Rayan. We had a lot of articles to review, so we shared it and then worked in review the title and abstract. After everything, we came together to have a consensus on the articles that we should include, and this was done by all team members. The quality assessment was done by 2 members of the team, and we adapted the EPHPP quality tool. We realized that some of the sections under the quality assessment tool from EPHPP was not favorable for cross-sectional studies. So we included only sections for selection bias, confounders, data collection, study design, and analysis to create the quality assessment we will use for our systematic review. We used a Google form to create a data extraction form, and 4 team members worked on the articles that we included in our study to extract data from the individual studies. We looked at population characteristics, methodological characteristics, statistical characteristics. We used the form that was part of the class materials. At the end of the day, we had 581 articles from PubMed, and then we ended up with 11 articles for analysis. We excluded articles that were not in a developing country, were considered the wrong population, were earlier than 2001, was outside the focus of our study, and constituted reviews or comments. So this is the Prisma flow diagram of how far, what we were able to get. And at the end of the day, out of the 11 articles that we had finally, we were able to include 9 out of the 11 for the meta-analysis. This is the articles that we had, 11 of them. We have the country, the study design, the OR, and then the quality assessment. We had only 1 good article, 3 weak, and the rest were fair, based on our quality assessment. And we included not only meta-analysis, but a descriptive summary of all the articles we had, that is the 11. And then we used the random effects meta-analysis for the 9 articles that we found meta-analysis could be conducted on. This is because, as indicated in this table, it has information for the odds ratio and other things that we think were relevant for meta-analysis. We use REMA because we see a lot of variation with regards to our articles with respect to study design, even the study population and the country they are coming from, and there might have been inherent some statistical errors and all that. So we consider 5.4 version for us as a statistical software to do meta-analysis. This is our descriptive summary for all the 11 articles. Out of the 11 articles, 9 indicated that air pollution increased the risk for childhood asthma, whilst 2 indicated that it decreases the risk. Out of the 9, for those that increase the risk, 6 were significant results. And then we have the by study design and geographic context. By study design, we had about 8 cross-sectional studies, and out of them 5 were significant. They provided significant evidence. For the geographic context, and we have within Africa and outside Africa. And in each of these geographic contexts, 3 studies were significant, had significant evidence for the results they had on the impact of indoor air pollution on childhood asthma. There was 1 study that did not indicate whether there was significance or non-significance because it was more of descriptive rather than logistic regression or any other high-level estimations. This is the meta-analysis for our 9 articles. And at the end of the day, our overall estimate for all the articles was 1.05, which was significant, indicating that indoor air pollution on average globally from the articles we had increases the risk of childhood asthma. And it was significant. We have our I-square, which was 96%, showing the high level of heterogeneity in our studies. So we can support this by the fact that the study designs were so a lot different and in different countries, and the estimations to sample size and all that. This is our subgroup. In our second objective, we wanted to know whether the impact of indoor air pollution on childhood on childhood asthma, differ by geographic subgroups. This is what we had. In Africa, the overall subtotal indicated that indoor air pollution counterintuitively is protective for childhood asthma, whilst outside Africa, it showed that no, it is still a risk factor. And in fact, there is a 10% increased risk of having asthma, of a child having asthma if he or she is exposed to indoor air pollution. we have the heterogeneity difference lower in the outside African studies compared to the African studies. And we still have our overall 1.0. So we believe that there are mixed results with respect to geographic subgroups, but overall, we know that indoor air pollution increases the risk of childhood asthma, as we see here. My Eman will continue.
Yeah, so you have 1 minute more.
Eman. Okay, I think she's not here. Oh, maybe she's not responding.
Hey man, can you check your mic? Maybe your mic is muted. You have to unmute before you speak.
Okay.
One database search, which is PubMed. So we got few studies, most cross-sectional with few randomized control studies and case control and cohort studies. Also, the cross-sectional studies utilize surveys for asthma diagnosis, which is not the best method. Time limited supplementary data and contact authors for data retrieval. And Johnston will conclude.
Yes, in terms of conclusion, we had 3 conclusions already had been alluded to. There is sufficient evidence to indicate that indoor air pollution significantly increases the risk of childhood asthma. While some studies in Africa indicate protective effect of indoor air pollution, all studies outside Africa indicate indoor air pollution to increase the risk of asthma. We need more studies to improve on the level of evidence, especially in the developing African countries. And lastly, a recommendation. Wider search in more databases is needed because it was only limited to PubMed. There should be a standardization in asthma diagnosis and categorization of indoor air pollutants. And then lastly, more studies in diverse settings are needed to justify the need for interventions for reduction of indoor air pollutants. That is it. We have recommendations and group members. Bye.
Okay, thank you, Group 5. Fantastic. That was good. Please don't remove your slides yet, so that we can discuss on them. Okay. Any comment, questions from everyone? Any comments or questions? Or you think that you have done everything well and this can be published?
I think it's well done.
Yeah.
The members, well done.
Yeah, David, please, can you?
I think, yeah, they took us through the process. But what I missed a little bit was the selection, how they selected the papers. I think Josephine didn't highlight a bit more how they selected the papers. I don't know if I missed that. So that is one key thing I was missing. Josephine?
Okay.
How you screen the papers? Yeah, I was looking for some systematic way. Yeah.
No, go back to this before. Is it not that one? The slide before.
Not this one. The slide before. Yeah.
This one. This one.
Yeah. I was looking. How did you arrive at?
Okay, so we how we were taught from PubMed to extract.
How many did you exclude? This. I mean, well, of course, these are things.
So it should be a Prisma flowchart. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, this is our Prisma flowchart.
Oh, you had something. Okay.
Flowcharts, and we couldn't include the reasons here, so I brought the reasons here.
Okay, that's okay. That's okay. Then the Brad, maybe that's the comment for Brad, that there are conclusions to the meta-analysis, the estimate, and then conclusions that she read from that?
Yeah, I can talk about that.
Okay.
One thing is you started with the fact that there are no previous systematic reviews on this topic, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So how did you know that?
Correct.
How did you know that?
As part of with the systematic reviews that addresses indoor air pollution and childhood asthma, what we researched and had was indoor air pollution and general asthma. So there wasn't any specific criteria for, like, there wasn't any systematic review looking at indoor air pollution and childhood asthma. So that's how we got.
In developing countries, you mean?
Yes, in developing countries. Yes.
Okay, but did you make a search to conclude this?
Let me come in. This is related to the risk, because there were several studies that had that in the area of specifically what we are looking for, which was in the risk area, it was not there.
Well, I mean, the point that if you are sure of this, then it's an important information. And of course, as I said to other groups, something you can take forward to do this. But you need to be sure that is the case. And one thing you can do is to start with Prospero to see if there is any previous thematic review on the topic. Otherwise, you can search PubMed as well as Google to establish that. But usually before you make that statement, you should have done this kind of background check. Okay, from this table here, I can see that you have the study from Guatemala as a randomized controlled trial. And I was wondering about that. If you are looking at indoor airway pollution, how is this possible to be investigated using randomized controlled trial? What did they do? Did they randomize people to being exposed to this and people not exposed? Or how did they do this?
Interesting. Yeah.
In for this particular, okay, Iman.
I think I'm not sure if this or not, but one of the studies they was giving people at home some kind of stuffs, and others not using this and using biomass fuel, and they compared both groups.
Okay.
If I remember well, this may be this one study.
Okay. So one thing is that in this kind of situations, you need to check carefully what they have done. Because when you do this kind of studies, there are things that are unethical you cannot do. It's like, for instance, what I described yesterday, when you do breastfeeding, we know that breastfeeding has been established to be important. So you can't actually randomize that. You can't deny children being breastfed and some children breastfed. And so for this kind of hazard, we know that they are dangerous. You can't implement some study design. So you have to always check that carefully to see what they have done. And then another thing I was wondering is when you talk about childhood asthma, it wasn't clear for me what was there. Is it that they want to see whether being exposed to indoor pollutants lead to development of asthma, or amongst children who have asthma, if it leads to worsening of asthma, not worsening of asthma? And so because we're interested to know the first onset of the disease, and amongst those who already have the disease, what is the impact of an exposure on exacerbation or worsening of the outcome or recovery from the outcome? So when you say risk of asthma here, what did you have in your mind, and what are you talking about?
Okay, Prof. The specific focus was on onset of asthma, not severity. Okay. In fact, there was a study we had to exclude because it was looking at relationship between indoor air pollutants and worsening of asthma. And of course, they focused their study population on those that were asthmatics.
Okay.
So in this case, we're looking at onset of asthma.
Yeah, so that needs to be clarified when you make this in real life.
Okay.
Because there are two different issues. Now, when you go to your meta-analysis, just when you can go to your funnel plot, I think we can address what David was asking. If you go to your, yeah, and by the way, I like this previous slides. The way you have presented is really captivating. This kind of presentation, and that is one of the things we have discussed to be innovative in presenting your information. Okay, I see here that you have packed all the oranges and apples and everything together here, and you derive this estimate. And here you have included the randomized control trial, you have included the cohort studies, case control studies, and the cross-sectional studies. Yes. In real life, you see that these are different study designs. You wouldn't combine the randomized control trial with this observational study. It should stand out on its own. So you wouldn't do that. Then you shouldn't really combine as well cohort studies with cross-sectional studies. Sometimes you can combine cohort studies with case control studies, because sometimes case control studies can actually be derived from ongoing cohorts. So in that case, we can make some assumptions that the case control study is close to the cohort, mimicking it in that, but you need to investigate that. But the point here is that now you have combined all this, that really becomes problematic how to interpret the evidence, because cross-sectional, you just get people and ask them questions and you don't know which one comes first, whether they had the asthma before being polluted or whether they had the pollution before having the asthma. But in cohort studies, we follow the people. So they get the exposure first, then we follow them to observe the outcome. So in combining everything here, then it becomes really problematic in that. And that is why, as I mentioned before, when you do this, the goal will no longer be to derive overall estimate. You should go to the next step to now investigate subgroups. And I like the subgroup you have done, although it's still deficient, because within those regions, you have different study designs combined that are not alike. And you can see from your I-square, I think it is pointing to this study design. If you have done subgroup analysis based on study design, I think you begin to see some clear picture that may be emerging there, that in terms of design, these studies are different. But this figure here you have done here is quite interesting, because it shows that having air pollution increases the risk of developing asthma outside Africa. But in Africa, it seems protective. But if you look at individual studies in Africa, they are here and there. They are here and there, heterogeneous, while those from outside Africa are close to each other. And this may actually relate to the question I think you would have highlighted. How is indoor pollution measured? Perhaps this is a measurement problem. This is an interpretation problem. In Africa, I don't know how well this can be measured, as well as asthma. For instance, the cross-sectional studies perhaps have asked the question about asthma, asking parents or even the children, how well do people know what asthma is? Can they misinterpret? So there are a lot of things you can dig out from here to try to explain why are the studies in Africa giving a different information from the studies outside Africa. And the studies outside Africa seem to be supporting the hypothesis that indoor air pollution may be a risk factor for development of asthma in children. So once you have done this kind of subgroup analysis, some issues begin to emerge, and which you need to now begin to discuss. And for Africa, you need to now loud the trumpet that really these results need to be investigated more in terms of improving our design, which will include better measurement of indoor air pollution, better measurement of asthma and outcome. Okay, so the overall estimate here is not important. We can't use it because you have mixed so many things in here that are supposed to be separated. And I can see from what you have done here, you have used fixed effect model because the tau square is not reflected, meaning that you have used fixed effects. I don't know if that was intentional or it was just an oversight.
It's a mistake. I was trying the final plot and then use the fixed, and then I forgot to copy.
Okay,
and random.
Great. So
Copy
you
this.
have excuse for that.
Yes, it's a mistake, please.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I don't know if
I need some clarification.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially the slide that has the Prisma. Please, could you the slide that has the Prisma where you excluded the other one, the next slide.
The previous one. Yeah, okay.
Yes, good. Now it says no, the one you just took off now. Yes, exactly. This one. You said 566 articles excluded.
Yes.
Not a developing country, wrong population area. So it would have been nice if each of these category has a number so that we would be sure exactly what category has what exclusion, or is it reflected in the other slide?
Not
the previous
entirely.
slide, is it there?
It is done in a summarized form, but not entirely, because counting the reasons, we had limited time, 566 articles, we had to work on other things. So
yeah,
we were not able to
if I come in here, sorry, Josephine, Felix, you're making a very important point. Yeah, you need to specify the numbers at those different reasons. But what happens here is that if you go to the other slide, the other Prisma, let me show you something there. Yeah, so what happens here is that you don't give the reason for exclusion at the level of the title and abstract screening. And that is what you have done there. You don't give the reason. You give the reason at the level of the full text screening. And that is the 19 you see there you have removed. So those are where you give the reasons. And for each reason, what Felix is saying, which is important, is for you to indicate the number of people. For instance, if you say wrong population, which how many studies were excluded for that reason? So you need to
okay. All right.
Okay, that's an important point, Felix, and thanks for that. David, you wanted to say something, eh?
Yeah, I just I don't know if it really makes sense, but I could have checked that also. But because I have my students here also, I want them to know. You can clarify. Sometimes the presentation of the meta-analysis, sometimes they have the total population, then the sub-population together. Is that the best, or
no,
something they just
you
have
just a button you can click in Revman to remove the total population to the overall. Yeah, you can click a button there. When we went through it, there was a place it asked that question, so you tick it. But here the important is not the combined estimate, so you can tick that and remove that.
Yeah, but if you combine, if you have that one in and the sub studies, does it affect the weighting in any way, the estimate in any way?
No. It doesn't affect anything.
It's independent.
You can see that within the subgroups, it does the weighting as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the total is not important here, so you can remove it.
All right. Good. Very good.
Okay. Thank you very much, Group 5. Let's go to Group 6.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. This is Rosalie. I will be sharing my screen in a second. Sorry. Okay. Hi. So this is group 6, and our topic today is in regards to management of neonatal sepsis among newborns less than 1 month in Africa. And here are the group members: Adeniki, myself, Albertino, Jonathan, Justice, and Augusto. So the main content of this presentation will include the question formulation, the development of protocol, identification of eligible studies, data extraction and quality assessment, synthesis of evidence, and conclusion. So in regards to question formulation, we have used the PEO framework, where the participants were the newborns less than 1 month. The exposure was neonatal sepsis, and the outcome is the management infection. As the way to develop the protocol, we have considered the abstract, background, aims and objective, eligibility criteria, preliminary search strategies, and study selection. So a little bit of background of the topic. The reason why we have chosen the 1 month criteria is that is the most critical part and vulnerable periods of life due to the susceptibility to infectious agents and deficiency in immunity. And published data has suggested that sepsis causes around 26% of neonatal deaths in sub-Saharan Africa. So that's why it is important to do the early diagnosis and the treatments in the most proper way. So the study aim, we wanted to, we synthesized the available evidence only in a PubMed platform in order to understand or to search for the management of neonatal sepsis among newborns in less than 1 month in Africa. And as eligible criteria, we have used all articles that were published within the last 10 years. And also we have considered only the newborns less than 1 month. So while working on the PubMed, this is just a quick way as we have filtered using the mesh terms. And the first one, we only used the management, control, neonatal sepsis, and infant sepsis, all within the last 10 years. And we came up with 2060 results. But then after we have considered Africa, the term Africa, it was reduced to 179 results. So it is just to show that it is really important to put as much terms as possible so we can actually have the most, the better articles for what we are looking for. Has study selection, we've ended up with, after identifying the articles in the PubMed, we have imported the Excel data in CSV format into the Rayon platform. And from there, we have imported 240 articles. And while we were doing the screening, it was 2 to 3 of our members of the group 6. And we have screened, and first we started with 186 articles that were duplicates, and 136 out of the 186 were duplicates, so we have excluded, and it ended up with just 15 articles. And we have refined those articles based on the abstracts, which will ended up only with 36. Out of those 36, we have excluded 9 with reasons, and those reasons would be because of the wrong population. Let's say that some of the articles actually mentioned about neonatal sepsis, but they were focused on mother rather than the child. Any other reasons is the age group. Most of them related to babies older than a month. And those were the main reasons. So we have ended up with just 27 articles for the qualitative synthesis. We then have used an Excel form as a way to do our quality assessments. And those are the main factors that we have used to do the quality. So we have considered authors, article, title, population characteristics, study sample, age of respondents, aim, methods, key findings, and the last 2 questions, which actually tell us about quality assessment, which are the results of the study, the validation of the results study, and the generalization of the study themselves. So this is just a screenshot of the templates we were using to complete the Excel form. Has synthesis evidence, we have selected the 7 most common evidence throughout those articles that we have found. One of the main ones was about the type of diagnosis that is quite common throughout those publications. So it would be white blood cells count and the CRP. It is quite used. Has conclusions among a lot of facts. Those 4 that we have found is like there's a lot of approach that exists in the management of neonatal sepsis in Africa, which means that there was a lot of strategies implementing throughout those papers, so they were not standardized. Something interesting was lack of knowledge about parents or guardians in regards to neonatal sepsis, which also contributes to the high mortality and morbidity cases. There is an increase, there should be an increase in constant monitoring of the antenatal care and and early detection. I do apologize. Go all the way back to the end. Okay. There should be an increase in constant monitoring of antenatal care and early detection for the management of neonatal infection. And what we found also is that there's a need for other African countries to investigate this issue, because what we found is that there was at least 7 to 8 countries and in Africa that have done some work on it. So in order to increase the level of evidence, other countries should also work in this kind of topic. And that's that for our presentation. We were unable to do the meta-analysis due to time constraining, but yeah, that's it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Group 6. Any observations, questions, comments for Group 6, please?
Yeah, thank you very much, Group 6, for this presentation. I don't know if I'm tired, but I did not grasp the rationale for this systematic review. I will beg your pardon. Because when you say management of neonatal sepsis among the neonates in Africa, this is a systematic review which we learned and we thought we could get some meta-analysis. So I'm wondering, did you do a systematic review without the steps that we went through this week? Yes, I've seen that you used Prisma, but after Prisma, I actually got lost. Just get me from there, because I expected to have different managements, and then we know which management had a higher protective factor to protection of or to managing neonatal sepsis, and maybe like did you achieve what you really went to research about? Just let me get to that level. Thank you.
Group 5, did you get a question?
Yes.
Group 6, I mean. Yeah, did you get a question? Rosalie?
In case they didn't get a question, then I can repeat and maybe break it in bits so that we can get something from there. Because when we were beginning to learn this course, we had blocks of steps that we are following to reach a conclusion. But to somewhere I couldn't get to know which step where you have reached. So I got mixed up.
Kukur, thanks for your question. I will leave that for my colleagues to answer. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, anyone helping out Rosalie for group 6 to answer the question? Goodness me, has everyone in group 6 left? Yeah, what is group 6 saying?
I think Dangana is about to answer. I believe so.
But his microphone is mute. Oh, okay, no, that's not. Somebody says he has issues with his audio. That's Dangana.
Yeah, but Rosalie, if no one is answering, can you respond to that?
Sure, I'll try to answer as much as I can. I believe that we have stuck with just the systematic review. We thought it would be enough to do the presentation based on our formulated question. There was a little bit of lack of communication, so it might have delayed. So that's why we haven't done the meta-analysis as well, as I explained earlier, and that would have to answer some of your questions. But I think Jonathan is able to ask better.
Okay, Rosalie, can you just take gradually your slides from here, take it forward, the next slide, let's see.
Sure, no problem. And I think Jonathan just answered in the chat.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, just go to the next slide. Yeah. So the content, you have the question formulation, development of protocol, identification of eligible studies, data extraction and quality assessment, synthesis. Yeah. Theo, is this clear to you? Go to the next. Yeah, you have the PAO framework.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Go to the next.
All right.
Yeah, next. Next. Yeah, no, just go to the previous one. I want to. I think I really like your background here and justification you have made here for this thematic review. Okay, let's go to the next. Yeah. Okay, I think Theo, I don't know if you have any specific areas, but otherwise.
After this, yes.
Yeah. So after this, let's
yes.
go. Let's continue and see. Yeah, you have the searches. Yeah, to the next. No, just yeah, the one before this. Okay, so they have done this. Step 2, elimination by title, abstract, and step 4. Perhaps what you didn't indicate here is how you did this, how many people was here, independent screening, and so on. I guess you did that, isn't it?
Sorry, Bright, can you ask the question again, please?
Yeah, I mean, what you didn't indicate here was how you did the screening. Did you independently screen and then come together to resolve any
Hello?
disagreement?
Hello?
Yeah,
Hello?
we
Hello?
can hear you now, Jonathan.
Oh, okay. Yes, we did the screening as a group first, and then we now split it into different numbers based on the entries that we had to do further screening based on the search criteria that we had.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go to the next.
And sorry for my audio. I hope somebody is able to read my response.
Yeah, okay.
If it answers the question.
Yeah, generally, I think Group 6 has been able to take the steps required. For this Prisma flowchart, I had challenges getting this because you search only PubMed, then you have 136 duplicates. How did you come about that?
The first point was as a result of the search word, and if you will look, can you go back to the other slide before this, please? Oh, no, this slide is okay. Yeah, so you will notice that the elimination was a two-step process. At first, it was 180, and then, of course, it now dropped to 50. But then before we even got to the final, by the first entry, no, by the second entry, we now had to exclude basically the search word. I think that is more or less what I want to say.
Yeah, I know. So because usually we get duplicates when we have such different databases.
Yes.
But if you have such only PubMed and you have this number of, maybe you didn't put it in the right way.
In the right way.
Yeah, in the Prisma. Because if you go to the other, I see that you have 2 exact matches here when you look at duplicate. But if you go to the other, what's it called? The Prisma, the next slide, then where you have put that, it appears that you remove 136 duplicate, but that is not the case.
Yeah.
I guess this is the number you removed when you have done the title and abstract screening.
That's right, sir.
Okay. Then one thing you should have also done is from the 50 you screened, then you should indicate the number that was excluded before you got to the 36.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Now let's go forward to the next.
But Dr. Bright, sorry, does it mean they didn't have access to any full article?
We limited the study to title and an abstract.
Why?
I think Rosie made an allusion, communication. We had some members of the group who were fluctuative. So it became a bit burdensome for the total number of individuals who were on ground.
So what you have here was based only on the abstract. You didn't check the full text.
No. It was title, full text, and an abstract. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So Theo, you said from that perspective, you are making your comment now.
Okay, we can proceed from there because that is part of selection. So what are the results?
What are the reasons for?
Yeah, the results. Now we want to get a glimpse. Like when I leave this presentation, I need to get like one word to understand the management of neonatal sepsis.
Yeah, I think for the fact that you have not done food test screening, we can't really conclude anything from here.
Oh yes, that's true.
We can't do that. Group 6. So we expected you that you go to the point of looking at the food text because we have a clearer picture about that, but you didn't do that. All right, I think we can stop here and give group 1 opportunity to make their own presentation. Thank you, group 6.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, this is group 1.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm trying to share my slide. Okay.
We are not seeing it yet. Okay.
Okay, our title is the effect of maternal zinc intake on autistic children in Africa. And of course, this is a systematic review. On the outline, we have the introduction, the aim, the method, result, conclusion, and references. For the introduction, according to Ketsi and his colleagues, they have done some kind of a study on some animal species, and zinc, the intake of zinc seems to be very effective. However, the influence of prenatal zinc intake on later development is not known on humans. So that is why this study is in view. The main objective of this study was to assess the effect of maternal zinc intake on autistic children in Africa. And of course, the research question is, what is the effect of maternal zinc intake on autistic children in Africa? For PICO, we made use of P, I, and O. So we have for participants, the pregnant women, children. Of course, the exposure here is zinc, and of course, the outcome is autistic disorder. For comparison, there was none. Yeah, we have done some search, and basically we made use of PubMed, and that was from 1967 to date. And of course, those are our search terms. And the moment we added Africa, the number dropped. This is our eligibility criteria, or criterion rather. For the inclusion, we looked at infants below 5 years with regards to prenatal maternal zinc intake. And our focus was mostly on cause and effect studies. So we only made use of RCTs. For exclusion criteria, we excluded reviews, meta-analysis, or cross-sectional prevalence studies, and studies having zinc effect on children alone, or either ways, maybe on mothers alone, and studies that were beyond 5 years old in terms of the children's age. With all these mesh terms, a total of 70 papers were retrieved. The results were exported to RAN for paper selection. And of course, as you can see, 7 were removed automatically because they were of reviews. And the remaining 63 papers, out of it, 60 were more cross-sectional and prevalence studies, and 3 made it to the final. However, only 2, after we have pulled up the full text, were included for discussion. And of course, this was a double-blind search, not just one person did this. On quality assessment on the 2 papers, the first paper was published in 1994, and this was done in Egypt. The second was done in 2017, and that was in Tanzania. For quality assessment, for the one of 1994, we see to be moderate, and for the one of 2017, we see to be good. Our result, for the study in 1994, 50 pregnant women were included in that data. And as you can see, the evaluation was more of motor development of infants. And we can see from these models explain that there were variations between 49 to 53% with regards to the intake of zinc. And for the second paper, we have about 198 children that were enrolled in this study. And our findings are limited because we cannot generalize our findings due to the number of papers that we have. In conclusion, as observed from the 2 studies, the first 2 study was of the opinion that their study found a link between zinc intake and habituation behavior. More so, the recent evidence, that's from the study of 2017, suggests that prenatal zinc intake have no effect on habitual behavior. Also, like I said earlier, we cannot generalize our findings from the 2 studies above. Therefore, the need for a comprehensive study on the topic will be needed. These are our references. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, group 1. Any questions, comments?
Yeah, question. Thank you for your presentation. I am just wondering, if you had access to full articles, and then you said there was no C in your PICO. Why was there no C? Did they just administer only zinc without any control?
Yes, mainly the majority of the papers just were prevalent studies. They quantified the zinc and they didn't compare concerning the administration. So just these 2, there is a comparison between the control and the placebo and the administration of zinc.
That tells you that there must be a C.
Yes, you are right. Now, when I was observing the presentation, I realized that probably the comparison would be between the zinc administration and the placebo. So indeed, there is a comparison. You are right, I think.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, in my own case, I just wanted to inquire from Dr. Bright, just in case you may want to take this study further. I know when it comes to things like treatment, dose is really, really key. You know, so in this case now, for them, like one of the study has dose, the other does not have dose. Maybe it has, but it probably is not on this slide. So because dose is sensitive to studies like these, eliminating studies without specifying that do not specify dose, would that be appropriate? This is a general question, not specifically to the group.
No, Felix, you are completely right. And indeed, the first paper, it was not an administration. They evaluate the food intake, and it's interesting because they calculate the zinc that should be, or that it could be really intaked, and they associate it with the phytates also and the vegetable origins of the food. So, and indeed, it's very important because you have the bioavailability of zinc. So this is very difficult to quantify. So I think we have chosen a very good team in the beginning, but then we realize it, we have started very difficult work.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Bright, Professor Bright, sorry, can I say something?
I'm here, please go ahead.
I mean, this is like an assessment of all the various groups. Some groups did extremely well, which shows the level of understanding of this very complex. This is a very complex topic, which you've tried to simplify to the level all of us which understand. Those who ended up with doing the meta-analysis seem to have a broader knowledge. Those who didn't do seem to have some issues in trying to grasp the synthesis and then progression to analysis. Maybe I think as a follow-up, if it's possible for you to track down these other groups, those of us who probably have moderate to little knowledge of everything, so that they can actually improve and do much, much better. We have 6 groups, only 2 groups did meta-analysis. It shows, and those are the very complex areas, very complex aspect of the study. You try to simplify. It was easier when you were discussing it, it was easier to understand. But you can see the difficulty in bringing it down to paper. I think we should follow up.
So you really want me to do that, eh? Anyway, David is raising his hand.
I wanted to address.
I want to say something, please.
My colleague Joe.
Let's David.
Yeah.
Go
ahead. First of all, I'm not quite sure that doing the meta-analysis suggests a better understanding of the course. For example, enjoyed so much the presentation by the group 6 and what they've gone through, even though they've not run meta-analysis. And this is also this one also is good. They've gone through the processes. So I think that is fine. I think what we can pick up from here is to create a network where iron sharpens iron, where we can learn from each other, group, especially the students on a program. We can learn from each other and then begin to utilize them. I think Bright has told us we have a lot of videos online. Basically, I've done the meta-analysis, but I've never used Refman. Yesterday, I had to listen to, in our group, at a point, we had to pause and look for a video to continue. And I think these things can help. And then we can ask somebody, oh, so how was this one done here? So I think we can pick up from there. I don't think that Bright has the energy, but of course, if he will do that, praise God. But I don't think he has the energy to be able to follow everybody up because I think next year he must prepare to set up and to meet others also so we can share. So let's create this capacity building between us and among also to affect others also around us.
Yeah,
That, this is my
we have the
humble view.
videos.
Humble view. Sorry, this is my humble view.
At least we have the videos which could help for
Yeah.
repeated.
Yeah. What happens is that for group 1. Thank you for your presentation. I will come back to the other issues Job is raising as we conclude. But one thing is that you said you were interested in if you go forward from here, let me see, there's a place if you take your slide forward. Again. Yeah. No, not the results. Maybe it's before. Yeah, here. You said you are focusing on cause and effect studies, and I've highlighted this before, and I heard you mention that RCT has become of interest here. Then if you go back to where you have your PICO, you said the C was not, there was nothing on that. So let me repeat this again. When you talk about cause and effect, it's already given indication, intervention, and then when you mention RCT, then there should be a control for that. So you have to think about this carefully so that you get it right, because if you don't get your PICO right, then formulating the question, if you say you want to look at the effect of maternal zinc intake on autistic children in Africa, compared to what? If you're looking at randomized control trial, compared to what? Usually there will be a comparison group. And without that comparison group, you cannot really formulate any cause and effect question here. So you have to observe that. And I agree that because when you started, you said in animal studies, there are some evidence, but it is not known in humans. If it's not known in humans, why do you begin to study it? Because if it's not known, meaning that there is no study already there. Perhaps you would have framed it another way, that some studies have been done in humans. Maybe their evidence is not clear or is conflicting, so you want to synthesize this body of evidence. But if it's not known, then it means that a study has not been done in humans. Okay, is there any other thing with regards to this presentation? And then we can conclude. If you have other things, we can present them later. Otherwise, group 1, you can stop sharing your slides. Okay, Emmanuel, if you stop sharing, then I will share my slide. Thank you. Okay. So one thing is this, it has been, for me, it has been a great week to share this material with you. And so please, for all the groups, send your presentations to me. I've received some through the chat, but those who have not sent, please send them to my email so that they don't get lost when this Zoom closes. So from what you have done, if I can just hear a few of you, how useful was this group project that you have presented this last day? How useful was it for you in enhance your understanding and your knowledge?
I would say it was a wonderful experience. The group interaction is like bringing down the theory in the class down to subunits where few persons could interface with each other and then reanalyze what is being taught in the class. Quite a very useful, I think, is the best aspect of the whole thing. But what I think one of the limitations or the disadvantage, what we probably limited ourselves by not bringing Bright into the group discussions at every level of the charts. I think we should have been consulting Bright much more often. That areas of difficulties could easily be sorted out, you know, because every day we have a discussion. Is if you bring in Bright could actually put somebody through. But what you discuss generally in the class, you know, and you're bringing that to the group level, and his presence was not felt. If you like a normal, if you like physical meeting, obviously it'll be much easier, you know, to have him make some corrections and make some assisting in getting some things sorted out. But I think the groups may not have used Bright as much as it would love to be used at the various group discussions.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for that. I move from group to group, and I also mention it. Please, I'm here if you have any. Some groups, of course, invited me when they had challenges. Perhaps the other groups did not take advantage of that. So I think that should be noted. Of course, this is the last day of the class, and we can't retrieve that back. But if you have future experiences with this kind of platform, I think it helps to take advantage to ask questions on the gray areas. Okay, any other person? I can take one more, then I'll proceed to the next thing.
Okay, in my own case, I feel first, the case studies and the real life examples were really helpful. So at least it made the course, it brought the course home so that we can actually see in true application where it is being used and maximized and the benefits of its use, you know, in those areas. And secondly, I also feel the group work, it's exceptional in the sense that it's not optional in this sort of workshop. Maybe if you're in a workshop where you are learning something you could implement on your own, yes. But in this case, I think the group work, it's more like giving us a dress rehearsal of what we would do, because at the end of the day, no one man can conduct a systematic review. So at least the group exercise sort of have given us that insightful understanding on how you can work in a group to actually generate or do your own systematic review. So I would give many thumbs up to the group, you know, activities that is incorporated in this. And I would say technologically, I've learned something new. For me, I don't know for others, I've only used Zoom for meetings in and out. You know, it's interesting to see that I could actually explore Zoom in other ways, like creating rooms, inviting. It was an eye-opener, you know, so I think that I have learned and will also incorporate in my own trainings. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Another question quickly, I would like to know what happened in this course I've presented here is that all the times I have taught this, what I have done usually for the group works was to develop a very general question and give one question to all the groups and allow them to break down the question to their own specific question, the answer. So I have this big question and ask them, each group, break it down to specifically what you want to address. This is the first time I have actually left it open and told the groups, please develop your question yourself from scratch. How difficult or how easy was it for you to do this, to develop your question?
Okay.
Hello.
Thank you very much. So it was it was a golden opportunity, but the first time we met to develop our concept, our question, it was a little hard because the group is comprised of different professionals with vast experience. And so everyone was bringing his or her own idea. And at a point in time, we had very, very many ideas coming up. And the time was getting on hand. And I mean, it was, but one thing that amazed me is the way we, especially group 3, the way we reached a conclusion, even the first day. I was amazed by that because it included lots of coming down, of listening to each other, of consensus, and you know, it was quite amazing. So to us, group 3, I think I thank them because they really collaborated from day one of getting the question.
Okay, so it was challenging, but you got through it. Eh?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, that is good for me to know, so that maybe it's a strategy I could continue with.
Hello, Bright.
Yes, please.
Hello, Dr. Bright.
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I think it's a good one. Is giving us the opportunity to look for something to do ourselves, and not actually not giving us a big question like that. Yeah, I feel this may actually open up some other areas of research in this systematic review and meta-analysis, because the way we think are different. So allowing people to think, and then I think if you go on with this in subsequent courses, you may be sure what people will suggest that will actually be more innovative than some other things you think they may come up with. So it's a good one, allowing us to actually decide on what we want to work with, though challenging as mentioned by the earlier speaker, but I think it's a good one. So,
okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. So those points are noted. So what I will do now is to conclude. We started with this. These were all blacks when we started, and as you can see now, we have been able to finish them up. One thing I have to say here is that learning is a process. Learning is not just when you sit in the class. You keep learning even when you start implementing this. So go out and start doing it. These methods will leave you if you don't use them, as it is in other things you do. So once you start doing, by the time you have done first systematic review, published it, done the second one, publish it, then somebody wakes you up in the night to ask you, how do you do it? You explain it quickly and go back to your bed because it's now in your fingertips. So that comes only when you use the method. But overall, we have been able to cover all this. And if you master this, then I think you should be confident enough to move on. Okay, please, the course evaluation, make it if you have not done it yet. I need it. For me, this has been fantastic experience. Except this COVID has come, I wouldn't know how effective teaching this online could be. I have been teaching this in person at my university here and other places. But this COVID during this spring, because of the lockdown, I taught it here via online Zoom. And then I thought this could be an opportunity, as I said in the first day, to take it closer home, because this course is so popular here that many people don't get in because there is a restricted number. So once I saw the interest, not only here, but several other places I go to teach this, I decided that it is good to take it back home because I know the impact this will have in what we do. I want you to fill the evaluation so that this can be improved in going forward, because I intend as much as possible to present this once a year. And this has been possible because I started my annual leave last Monday. So I fixed this so that I can use the free time. Otherwise, other times it becomes somewhat challenging. The form is anonymous. There are some questions people have asked when they have filled the forms, which I've noted, which may be personal questions, and they want me to respond. But because the form is anonymous, I can't respond because I don't know who is asking the question. So if you want me to respond to those personal concerns or the questions you have made there, please send me email, then I can respond. Otherwise, I wouldn't know who is asking the question. But one question I would like to mention is somebody is asking whether this course can be certified, if you can get the certificate. No, that is no. This is my personal effort and it's free. But I teach it in several places, and what they do, if you want to give the certificate, then it means that the university needs to organize it, and when they organize it, they invite me, and the university will be the one to give the certificate to the student who complete that. And sometimes they invite people from outside the university too, and take advantage of that. So also there is a question here. Let me go back here, and somebody is asking, can you be invited to give this course in our university? Yes, I do that. And then you can plan on how to get the certificate and give to the participant. You can't get that from here. But if you plan that, we can discuss that further. It needs to be planned well in advance because I'm busy with so many things. So any schedule I need to plan, I need to make it very well in advance. So get in touch and then we can talk about that. I am happy to do that. Okay, I mentioned this. Job was really putting me on a spot to really take this to a greater direction by following you up. That would be really difficult to do because I wouldn't have the time to do this. Really, I wouldn't have the time to do this. I mentioned this, these things, I organize them even when I travel, try to put it when I have my vacations and all that, so I can have time to dedicate to that. Otherwise, it's difficult. But what I have offered for you here is that if you want to expand your knowledge base, if you want to expand your skills, to really streamline this experience, to do it in real life, then get in touch. Some of you have gotten in touch, and then there are projects we can take on. And what I will do is I will take you step by step. And I promise you I've done this for people, and many people are benefiting from that, so that you can get involved, not only the skill, but we'll do something that is important for our health, for publication, for your own career, and you benefit something from that. So get in touch and then we can discuss more. Those who have gotten in touch, I will write you the coming week, and if you don't hear from me, come back to me. I will write you and then we can plan on how to take this forward. There are a couple of projects that are already on the ground we can follow on from here. Okay, my plan is to really continue to do this kind of things. If you want it on campus, yeah, write to me. We plan that, but as much as possible to provide this opportunity to African scholars. And there are other courses, as I mentioned at the first day, I teach here, which I believe are very necessary for cross-disciplinary participants to benefit in advancing their research skills. So I have some of these courses I'm thinking of coming up. This one we have organized here, I will surely do that next year, summer. I had 110 applicants. I chose only 42. It was 40 before, but to balance the groups, I had to make it two to be able to manage it. So it means that there are more than close to 70 people who could not have this opportunity. So next year we'll organize it and invite them. So what is happening there is that for those who have participated, as I mentioned yesterday in my email, unless you want to opt out, I can keep your email and so that you can have this information when they are circulated, so that if any of the courses there you think you are interested to participate, you can register and then circulate it to your network. There are resources here. I will put this slide in the Dropbox as usual, so that you can have that. But otherwise, this is it for me. And thank you so much for participating. And if there are final thoughts, we can take that before we say goodbye and end this.
Bright, I know you are African. Where are you from, please?
Where I'm from?
Yeah.
Yeah, you are at Uniport. I grew up in Port Harcourt. I'm from Abia State. I was born in Lagos. And Prof. Atuloma was my professor. He taught me. So I'm a Nigerian man. I'm an Igbo man. Yeah.
Thank you for taking your time to give us this opportunity.
Yeah, you can speak one after the other. Yes, Job, you were speaking.
Yeah,
Prof, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm actually excited because thematic review is a big issue, but you have a very firm grasp of the subjects, which is quite exciting. Your knowledge of it is very exciting. Thank you very much. It's not very easy.
Okay.
It's not very
Thank you
easy
very much.
to spend your summer time to take us through this course. It's not very easy. And for all participants, thank you very much. Let's keep working together for the benefit of, for the good of everyone.
Thank you very, very much. It was an opportunity for me as a Ugandan. I think I'm the only Ugandan in this team. I want to thank you very much, especially Prof. Atuloma, for really inviting me to apply for this. I'm representing Uganda in this course, but I really want to thank you very much, and I promise that I will proceed with the course diligently, and I'll make sure that I learn, I learn processes to become competent in future. And the group that I was working with, we didn't know each other, but we clicked together from the word go. And they allowed me to lead them, their professors, their heads of departments, their doctors, but they really hit to my time, and it was quite good for us to finish on time. So thank you very much, Tim. Thank you, Brian. I couldn't imagine one person teaching this course, marathon for the whole week. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. That's what we
Thank you very much. Thank you.
My hand is up. Let me say a few words. Professor want to talk, but let me say a few words. Right, we cannot thank you enough for this wonderful opportunity. I have a lot of my students on this course, and I'm very, very grateful that you've taken your holiday time. Holiday time in Scandinavia is not something that you can bargain for many people, but you have decided to use part of your holiday away from your family to be seated in your office or wherever to teach us. We are most grateful, and we are looking forward to making good use of the things that we have learned here. I think that this is a wonderful contribution to Mother Africa and to the rest of the world, and we really appreciate that. We want to say a big thank you for everything. Thank you. I should have showed my face, but I think you know me. Let me show my face.
No problem. David was my I was trained in Finland, so David and I have been there for a long time. We started our programs together, so we have been very close friends. So yeah, so he's a big man now in Ghana, and we are here in the States struggling. Yeah, thank you, David. Thank you, David. Yeah, thank you, everyone. Yeah.
Yes, wishing you the best.
Yes, Prof. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Bright. Thank you, my prof, Professor Atuloma, for linking us up with this kind of
exactly
good training. I'm always proud of you, sir, and keep up the good work, sir.
Yeah, of course. Without Prof. Atuloma, I wouldn't be in this field. He has.
Yes.
Thank you. So I passed through him.
Thank you for that testimony.
Yeah, of course. He taught me in Babcock, so without him, I couldn't have been here. So I appreciate that.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
we're always
Very good. Dr. Bright.
That's good.
Dr. Bright. Dr. Bright. Dr. Bright.
The teacher teaching the teacher. That's impressive.
Teacher
That's
of
good.
Who is speaking? Adewumi, are you speaking?
Thanks for sharing.
Teacher teaching the teacher.
I'm speaking. I've actually been in transit all day.
Good.
And I also want to use this opportunity to appreciate Dr. Bright sincerely. Since the very first day we started, I was blown away. Like I'm looking at, and I'm like, wow, how can someone just teach this for free? And I also want to thank Professor Atuloma because from the very first day I met him, I just told him that Prof, like you are my daddy. I'm willing to go anywhere, all for learning and all that. I really want to appreciate you, sir. You have really. Most times I want to pull out, and he has really been a support more than a lecturer, more than a professor. He's always been there. Giving me, the words of encouragement, and giving me that strength, to go on. I remember, when I started putting after my master's program, I did have to do a PhD, but I was like, Prof, it's not for people like me. And, he gave me that, words of encouragement, and he said, he believed so much in, even when you feel that you can't do something, there's a way Prof talks to you, and, you just have that imaginary wing to keep flying. I really want to appreciate him for that. And for this, I sincerely like what the Ugandan lady, I don't want to murder your name. So, I'm encouraged to, for students to really understand. At a particular point in time, I was lost, especially at that meta-analysis part, and I was impressed. I was happy that he eventually gave the video. So I intend to, take time out to study it. And thank God, Prof is coming back to Nigeria. So I believe that we'll work together, and also forge ahead with the knowledge you have imparted. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
I wish you all the best, and we'll be in touch. If any question, just write me an email. Okay.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.